I really want to get back to talking about education stuff, but there are far more important things to pay attention to around the world at the moment. And we really need to talk about Gaza again. On March 18 of this year, Israel's attacks on Gaza resulted in the deadliest day thus far for children in the over 500 days of genocidal war on the Palestinian people launched by Israel. 174 children, 174, were killed when Israel launched a series of airstrikes on Gaza, breaking a ceasefire agreement in observance of Ramadan. Let me remind you that when this conflict started in October of 2023, half of the population of Gaza's more than 2 million residents were below 18 years old. That is the population on which Israel has decided to drop over 85,000 tons of bombs by November of last year, more than the total amount of bombs dropped in World War II. To say that these children were supporters of terrorists or terrorists themselves is truly callous and ignorant. They did not ask for this. They were not even alive when Hamas first came to power. Most of them probably do not understand why they are being targeted in this way, and now many will never have the chance to understand. 17,000 children, over 17,000 so far, have been killed in Gaza since October 2023. That is one every 45 minutes, an average of over 30 every day. One third of the over 50,000 total casualties have been younger than 18 years old, and over 2,000 of them had been less than 2 years old. Palestinians have taken online to tell the stories of family members killed in airstrikes, some literally blown to bits, leaving nothing left to bury. And if these stories don't move you to know that something is I don't know. I don't know. And let me just say quickly that at some point you don't get to keep talking about the 1,200 people who were killed in the deadly Hamas attack of October 7, 2023, when you have killed 17,000 children in return. When you drop 85,000 tons of bombs on a population that's 50% children, at some point you don't get to keep calling that self-defense. And this needs to be said again. The Palestinians did not start this. It was the Jews that came and occupied the land that Palestinians had been living in for generations. The current state of Israel came into existence by displacing people out of their homes that they lived in for generations, and then murdering those who decided to fight back. Go Google the Nakba and Plan Dalet. It was the Jews that started this conflict by enacting a plan to ethnically cleanse the land of Palestine, to take it for themselves. And what? Were the Palestinians supposed to be grateful to Israel for allowing them to continue to live in Gaza and the West Bank? It would be like having a house you'd lived in all your life, that your grandparents had lived in, and then one day some other people come in and claim it for their own, but then they say, hey, maybe you can stay here in the bathroom, and then they expect you to not complain, to not fight back. Hamas only exists because of Israel's own history of violence toward the Palestinian people. Now, Israeli officials have publicly referred to this as a just war, and they claim to have taken precautions to limit the number of civilian casualties. But we know from recorded footage and eyewitness accounts that is a blatant lie. Israel has denied entry to aid trucks bringing in food and drinking water and humanitarian aid. They have deliberately aimed and bombed hospitals, schools, churches, and refugee camps. They bombed Rafah after telling the Palestinians they could evacuate there. Women and children trekking to refugee camps, waving white flags, have been shot dead by Israeli snipers. And they have opened fire on multiple occasions at civilians, just waiting for food at the borders. And then just a few days ago, we learned this.
We've arrived at the site where the ambulances were hit. These ambulances have been buried on the sand. There's a UN vehicle here, buried on the sand. Bulldozer, Israeli forces bulldozer has buried them. We're now looking for the bodies of those that were in these medical and humanitarian vehicles. Health workers should never be a target, and yet we're here today digging up a mass grave of first responders and paramedics. 7 days ago, civil defense and PRCS ambulances arrived at the scene. One by one, they were hit, they were struck. Their bodies were gathered and buried in this mass grave. We're digging them out in their uniforms, with their gloves on. They were here to save lives. Instead, they ended up in a mass grave.
That is the so-called most moral military in the world, killing paramedics and rescue workers, and then burying them in a mass grave. So, are we willing to call this a genocide yet? Or are we still pretending and choosing to look away? All of these actions just follow the Israeli military philosophy that there are no innocent civilians in Gaza. Again, a population that's 50% younger than 18 years old. No innocent civilians, as stated here by the Israeli president in 2024 and then echoed by their soldiers in the war.
It's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true. This rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved, it's absolutely not true.
Yeah. and if you think that's disgusting, here's a U.S. Holocaust Memorial Council member suggesting that more civilians need to be killed.
So maybe it's up to us to actually kill civilians. Can a war be won without lahashma of laharog? How are we ever going to win this war? The fact of the matter is that people around the country and in West Point, it's always pointed to that we've killed the fewest civilians. Yes, that's true, but we're still being accused of genocide. But maybe we need to kill more civilians.
Yeah, once again, half of Gaza's over 2 million residents. When this all started, were under 18 years old. Those are the people Israel are claiming are not innocent. 70% of all the dead have been women and children, non-combatants. Those are the people Israel are claiming are not innocent. So these civilian deaths, they're not accidental. These are not collateral damage. These are deliberate, targeted attacks on innocent people. This is not self-defense. This is annihilation. This is genocide. Netanyahu has been clear from the start that his goal is the annihilation of the Palestinian people and the destruction of Gaza to the point that it is uninhabitable. So no sane observer will look at all of this and call it justice. And yet, we continue to hear from men with pulpits equating people who speak out in support of the Palestinian people to supporters of Hamas and terrorism. It's that same immoral and inane logic that allows immigration officers in America to disappear people for speaking out of the party line in favor of Israel. When you dehumanize people, it is easy to look away from their oppression and to justify doing anything to them. Let me be clear about this. There is no dichotomy here. It's not just either pro-Israel or pro-Hamas. You can support the people of Palestine, the children of Palestine, while also condemning the terrorists that lead them. You can call for justice for the 1,200 victims of October 7th. You can call for the freedom of all the hostages on both sides. You can call for justice for the 50,000 victims of the genocide in Gaza, not to mention all that were murdered before them in the decades of conflict since the Jews invaded the land of Palestine with the backing of the UK and the US, claiming for themselves what had already belonged to Palestinian families for generations, and murdering thousands in order to do so. The Palestinian people did not ask for this. And it's historically ignorant to say all of this was their fault. To the children of Gaza, I hear you. And I'm too far away to make any sort of difference, and my heart breaks at my helplessness, that I can do nothing but post and share videos on the internet. And it frustrates me that I don't have an audience with the influence to make more powerful statements and consequential actions. It infuriates me that I cannot even make my own friends, my family, care about this. The people around me, they don't care enough to spread the word about this because the pulpit they worship told them this is justice, and all they can do is sit and nod in silence. So cold and heartless. So as a teacher, all I can do is say to anyone watching, don't take my word for it. Go look for the reports. They're everywhere. If you want to pay attention, pierce your bubbles. Follow the people on the ground, the journalists, doctors, aid workers, many of whom have since been silenced by bombs and bullets. Listen to them. Read the last words they prepared for a very realistic just in case. And spread the word. Do not let your humanity slip away by staying silent while a genocide continues in real time and a people is wiped out in the name of false justice.